Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:07. Thanks for tuning in here on this Wednesday morning to O'Connor and Company. It's Larry O'Connor here, and Julie Gunlock, sadly, is unable to join us today for extenuating reasons, but she'll be back. She's fine, by the way. People are expressing concern. No health issues, no problems. She's just got some issues there that kept her from joining us today. That's good. 7:35. Byron, it's not good, but she's fine. Byron York, Washington Examiner, will be our guest at 7:35, and then at 8:05, Representative Brandon Gill will join us. Joining us right now, James Gagliano. He's a retired supervisory special agent and serves on the board of directors of Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund, a law enforcement expert. And there's plenty to discuss with you, from the dropping of the charges or reducing of the charges of Luigi Mangione to the charges now filed against the assassin of Charles Kirk, or the suspect. And then, of course, that testimony yesterday from Kash Patel. I mean, let's start there. As a retired FBI agent, how was that to see an FBI director firing back at senators who were, quite abusive and aggressive with the director, but Kash Patel was having none of it?
Yeah, Larry, great to join you and your audience. I sat there and watched every riveting minute on C-SPAN 3 of the director's testimony. And look, the FBI has been around a long time, 117 years, but there have only been 9 Senate-confirmed directors. And, I expect it. I'm a recovering politician. I served 2 terms as mayor of the sleepy upstate village of Cornwall and Hudson, New York. And I understand, grandstanding and proselytizing, and you expect that from the Senate Judiciary Committee, even when they're performing oversight duties. I've been agnostic on Director Patel. I want to give him a chance. I know it's a tough job, and I know he's rounding into it. But I felt like, man, it's not worth his time, and it's not becoming to fight back the way he did. Yes, pushing back on Senator Schiff feels really good, but in the moment, I wish he'd just stick to just answering the questions. I mean, he's in the right, but by the same token, he's getting snared and pulled into a trap there. That's my 2 cents.
Well, he is in the right, and the sad thing is it's impossible to sort of forget what Kash Patel knows about Adam Schiff, since they worked together on that intel committee, and he saw firsthand how FBI the FBI was lied about and used as a political weapon, and part of the reason why he's there is to fix that.
Yeah, that is a fair assessment. I mean, Director Patel certainly has a bona fide. He served as a public defender, served as a prosecutor in the Department of Justice, served as a chief of staff, I believe, for the DNI. And yes, he knows where the bodies are buried there. But I don't know. In that instance, I would have just preferred for him to kind of just, stick to answering the questions. Congress does have oversight, and you're not going to win any political points from the position that you're in. That's just my take.
Let's turn to the investigation right now, first of all, the capture of the suspect in the Charlie Kirk assassination, and now the charges that were filed yesterday in court. Based on what you heard and what you saw in some of the text messages that were revealed, which I want to keep saying, they sounded odd to me. They didn't sound like your typical 22-year-old sending text messages back and forth to each other. Some people are even questioning the veracity of that evidence. What is your overall assessment of the evidence that they've got right now against this person?
Well, Larry, there's no such thing as a perfect crime anymore, right? I mean, police sciences have just evolved so greatly over the last century, and as I'm looking at what type of evidence that the DA laid out there in Utah, holy cow. I mean, if this isn't an open and shut case, I don't know if one exists. I mean, you have copious amounts of forensic evidence. You also have the killer's own words on Discord talking to his intimate partner and basically taking part in witness tampering and obstruction of justice. But the most important thing is the top charge. Aggravated murder. What does that mean? Because, what's the difference, Jimmy, in murder and aggravated murder? It means that when you commit that heinous act, you put many other lives in peril as well. And in that instance, he fired one round over the top of the heads of 3,000 people assembled to hear Charlie Kirk. Look, the death penalty's on the table there. It's going to be a tough go because you've got to get 2 juries to convict, 12 on the conviction for the crime, and then 12 to sentence him to death. but I think it's a very real possibility, Larry.
Okay. What do you make of this conversation that's been taking place over the last week? You know, the president has come out forcefully and said we have a major problem here with regard to violent actions taken because of over-the-top rhetoric on the political left. And although obviously, as J.D. Vance said the other day, we've got crazies on the right as well, but it's not a symmetrical equation here when you look at the string of violence we have seen. Is that a fair assessment of what we're seeing right now in our society?
You just laid it out perfectly. There is an incongruity there, and I think the vice president also touched on it. Of course, political violence happens on both sides, but this is not a both sides issue. Look at a little over the last year. July 13, 2024, then candidate President Trump nearly lost his life in Butler, Pennsylvania. You fast forward to December of 2024, Luigi Mangione decides that a United Healthcare executive needs to die. Then you fast forward to August of this year, just a few weeks ago, young man shoots into a Roman Catholic church, kills 2 young kids, and you finally end up with the political assassination of Charlie Kirk. Larry, here's the thread that pulls all these together. These are all Gen Z kids. They're all in their early 20s, and it's all part of the assassination culture. What is that quickly? Here it is. You have a grievance, and these are all grievance collectors, whether they're terrorists, mass shooters, or political assassins. You add to that an intractable ideology where you just can't come off of your positions, and then you liberally paint it with a patina of moral absolutism. I am so much superior to you morally, I can take your life because you are an existential threat for me. That's what it is, Larry, in a nutshell.
Wow. You said it very well. I can't add to it. I appreciate your assessment, though, especially as a former FBI special agent and a law enforcement expert. Quickly, if you can shed some light on this decision in New York, which just boggles my mind, to reduce the charges against Luigi Mangione, the assassin of the CEO of this health insurance company. It sounds as though the rationale behind reducing the charge to second-degree murder is in some way because, well, it wasn't an act of passion or wasn't an act. It seems to me that the judge reduced it because it was a politically motivated assassination. If anything, I would think that should increase the charges in this crime. What am I missing?
I know I can't curse on your show, but I'd like to say that this was a repugnant, reprehensible, despicable decision by a judge. The definition of terrorism is violence or intimidation in order to affect political, ideological, or religious goals. How could this not meet that muster? Now, he dropped the top charge. I'm still confident that Luigi Mangione is going to go away for the rest of his natural life. Unfortunately, there's not the death penalty in New York, and that it's not a capital crime here for some odd reason. But I thought it was a disgusting decision by the judge. It's going to have long-ranging impacts going forward. You can't pick and choose when something happens, terroristic like this, and you can't say, well, this guy didn't mean it that way, but somebody else did mean it that way. It doesn't meet muster to me, Larry.
Well, thank you for that absolutely somewhat censored, but at least explicit description of what happened with this. Real fast follow-up. Are there chances for federal charges in this case?
Absolutely. There's always an opportunity for superseding indictments on the state level, and there's always an opportunity for the feds to come in over the top.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Always a great conversation. Thanks for joining us. That's James Gagliano. You can follow him, James A. Gagliano, on social media, and he's with Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. It's 7:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
All right. Some might call it the government controlling the weather. Others would call it weather geoengineering. What is true is that what our government has funded with regard to, and all under the guise of climate research, of course, has uncovered here with regard to our funding of certain projects that can only be described as kind of playing God with the weather. we had a hearing about this yesterday. It's a multi-million-dollar project. Just one of the things here, the Politico reported about in July. It was a cloud creation experiment in Alameda, California. They used a retired aircraft carrier and a multi-million-dollar project to spray salt water into the atmosphere in hopes of producing clouds over a stretch of ocean larger than Puerto Rico. The researchers also quietly planned a test that would dim sunlight, but they didn't want to announce this because they wanted to avoid scaring the public. Oh, why would we be scared about something like that? Take a listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene in the subcommittee in the Oversight Committee covering this yesterday. Here's cut 20.
For years, anybody who questioned weather modification was labeled crazy or a conspiracy theorist. Now we've learned that they've been doing it for decades. And not only is it a multi-billion-dollar industry, the government has invested a lot of Americans' hard-earned tax dollars into it. They've been forced to spin it, and apparently it is now the only way we are going to save humanity. However, let's look at the risk. According to GAO, injecting a cloud with silver iodide increases precipitation anywhere from 0 to 20%. It could be even more, but the truth is that we really don't know for certain. The questions that are asked is, can you control the exact amount of precipitation that a cloud will produce if it is injected with silver iodide or another cloud seeding agent? Can you control where the precipitation is going to land with 100% certainty? Can you say that it will not cause or enhance flooding with 100% certainty? Is there any way to measure with absolute certainty the effectiveness of seeding a cloud? Do we know with 100% certainty how much rain a cloud would have produced if it had not been seeded? And lastly, did the American people ever get to have a say in any of this? The truth is that there's absolutely no way to measure the effectiveness of cloud seeding. But something else that needs to be known is the American people deserve to know that there is very little rules and regulations over this. These companies that perform cloud seeding and other types of geoengineering projects have to fill out forms from NOAA, and they have to list what agents they're using. And there is a category that simply says other, and they don't have to even fill out what other means. And I think that's extremely concerning. It is extremely concerning. And again, listen, I am willing to extend some level of grace here that the origins of these kind of projects were, listen, if we can stop droughts, if we can, keep agriculture thriving despite weather conditions, wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? And that may have been the original intentions. But when did we ever have a public debate about this? In fact, if anyone did suggest that this was going on, as you just heard from MTG, you were called a conspiracy theorist. Oh, you're crazy. What are you talking about? That's not happening. And yet it has been happening. The government's been doing it. Government's been paying for it. There's no accountability, and we've never even had a hearing or a vote about it. How does this happen? How does the government take your tax dollars and start screwing around with the weather and trying to control weather and make it rain and seeding clouds to make the clouds rain without you ever having your representatives say, yes, this is a good idea, let's vote on it? That just seems like a major thing that should be discussed. And, well, they discussed it yesterday. Here's cut 22. What's also changed over time is the scale of ambition. Today's advocates of geoengineering don't just want to address droughts or improve conditions for agriculture. They want to control the Earth's climate to address the fake climate change hoax and head off global warming. That, of course, requires massive interventions. What methods do they use? One is to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Yes, the same carbon dioxide that keeps plants alive and prevents mass starvation. Another method they want to use is to block the rays of the sun from hitting the earth. You heard that right. Yes, the same sun that makes all life possible on Earth. Seems like a bad idea. Real fast, a little bit more here, cut 23. What we've learned here today has been fascinating. I hope the people watching at home have been able to see the radicalized positions on the other side of the aisle. Remember, if you even question that someone could control the weather, you were labeled a conspiracy theorist or crazy. Then they changed the message to, well, it's not hurting anyone, and it is to provide water for people. And now they've come full circle around to the point that modifying the weather is how they save the planet from the global warming hoax, whether you agree or not. The people clearly disagreed with the climate hoax and disagreed with my Democrat colleagues, so much so that they made a big change last year. They elected President Trump and they elected Republicans to control the House and the Senate. These climate activists have come so far that they are actively trying to inject chemicals into the air to block the rays of the sun from hitting the earth. And they want to take away our God-given rights over the earth in order to satisfy their godless climate cult beliefs.
Yes, they are. They're atheists, they're godless, and yet they want to play God, which is a great irony. All right. More on this with Congressman Brandon Gill, who was part of that committee hearing. He'll join us at 8:05. Right now it's 7:24.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:37. Thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company. Busy morning here. Julie Gunlock unable to join us, so flying solo. You're just going to have to cope. Coming up at 8:05, Representative Brandon Gill will join us. And joining us right now is the chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner, Fox News contributor Byron York. His newsletter is very important. Make sure you sign up with that. Byron, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Larry.
So you have a fascinating article, as you often do, well-reported and incredibly relevant, especially, I think, for our Virginia listeners, because, the one issue that Abigail Spanberger continues to sort of double down on is that she would compel local and state law enforcement to not cooperate with ICE authorities, basically adopting Gavin Newsom-style sanctuary policies in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And Byron, you tell the story of an illegal immigrant in this country and the progression of crimes this person engaged in, leading to, horrifyingly, a decapitation murder. Trace this back for us, because I think it's an incredibly important story.
Yeah, it's just an astonishing story. And starting at the end, last week, a Cuban national who was in the United States illegally, working at a hotel in Dallas, got into an argument with the manager and very quickly left, got a machete, came back, began hacking at the manager. The manager's wife and son were there also, trying to protect him, and ended up very shortly, and I'm sorry for these details, but ended up very shortly beheading the manager. And like every horrible thing in America today, of course, it was on videotape. There were surveillance videos all around. Kicks the head like a soccer ball, according to one witness, down into the parking lot, and eventually tosses it into the dumpster. So it's just a horrific crime beyond description. So who is this guy? Who is this? And it turns out his name is Jordanis Cobos Martinez. Came to the United States. Now, I'm writing more about this morning because I've learned more about him.
Oh, good.
Came to the United States on a program, specific program for Cubans. Since the revolution, the United States has had special policies for Cubans. So he came here legally in 2016, and he had 1 year to apply for permanent residence, but he didn't do it. He just disappeared into the United States. So after 1 year, he was in the United States illegally and has been ever since. Mm-hmm. And so the trail of crime begins in 2017. He steals a Mercedes in Miami-Dade County and is charged with grand theft auto. And somehow nothing ever comes of this. It's amazing how many people are charged with crimes and nothing ever sort of comes of it. And then he goes to California, and he carjacks a woman, and the description was kind of amazing. He is naked. He forces himself into the car, onto the woman, and admits to police later that he had 20 beers and some marijuana before the carjacking. He's charged with carjacking and what's called false imprisonment, which is what occurs when you carjack a car with somebody in it. And amazingly, he's here in the United States illegally, and he's charged with these things, and he's allowed to stay.
Yeah.
And the carjacking charge just goes away somehow, and he does actually spend some time in prison for false imprisonment. So, and he's still here. And so what happens is he later comes to the attention. He moves to Texas, and he's accused of another crime there, and nothing happens there. And so what comes of this is that finally, in 2023, somebody in the immigration system notices him and says, gee, you shouldn't be here. And in 2024, he's actually picked up and put in a detention center in Texas. And so the ICE, this is under the Biden administration, makes an effort to deport him to Cuba. But Cuba says, we're not going to take this guy. He's a criminal. We're not going to take him.
Right.
So the Biden administration says, okay, and they let him go.
They released him.
So
released him a week before the inauguration, it should be noted.
Yes, they released him on January the 13th, 2025. This year, they release him, and he's free to just live in Texas, and that's what takes us up to last week in the events that I just described.
The brutal machete murder. This is,
Yep.
But it's a perfect example of what happens here. And then how many times do we have these criminals in custody, even convicted criminals, and yet there's no cooperation and no motivation from ICE up until very recently to actually deport them and get them out of this country. I framed this, Byron, in the context of the gubernatorial election in Virginia because I still think this is a major 80-20 issue that Democrats still can't quite get a handle on.
Yeah, and remember there was a law passed, the Laken Riley Act, because Laken Riley in Georgia was murdered by an illegal immigrant who had also committed more minor crimes, actually, before that, and had not been detained. So the Laken Riley Act was, look, you can detain people who are in the United States illegally and commit theft, and burglary, and other crimes like that. And there were a number of Democrats, 46 Democrats, actually voted in favor of the Laken Riley Act, but 150-something Democrats voted against it. And most 156, most of them voted on what they said were due process grounds.
Yeah.
That you have to have full due process. And for the accused criminal, what you see in the Cobos Martinez case is due process just stumbling at various times in which charges just seem to go away. The case just seems to be forgotten. Even when they decide kind of half-heartedly to deport him, Cuba says no, and then they don't try harder. Or they don't find another place to deport him.
Right.
I mean, so...
There's no law that we must deport an illegal immigrant back to their country of origin if that country refuses to take.
That's absolutely correct. So all of this leads, in retrospect now, it just leads to that hotel in Dallas.
Yeah. By the way, you highlight in your article that the very ambitious and smooth-talking Ro Khanna, who would like to paint himself as sort of a moderate-ish, reasonable Democrat running for president, we think he's running for president, he voted against the Laken Riley Act, so it's going to be hanging around his neck. And yes, of course, Abigail Spanberger, again, who presents herself as the moderate, not one of those crazy Democrats, she also voted against the Laken Riley Act. So again, to frame it back into the political equation, I just don't see how Democrats are going to succeed if they continue to take up these issues that basically effectively allow these murderers, literally murderers, to roam free in our country. And strangely, Byron, they behave as though we are in some way obligated, as you said, either through due process and constitutionally, or in some way morally, we are obligated to take international murdering criminals and let them roam in our country, and we have no right to deport them somewhere else. It's just a nonsensical position to me. It defies logic.
Yeah, and the reason I brought up Ro Khanna, which is interesting, is because he actually tweeted about the Dallas crime, and he said that this brutal beheading of a hardworking Indian American immigrant, the boss in this case, the victim in this case, was from India. He came to the United States in 2018. So he says the brutal beheading of a hardworking Indian American immigrant in front of his wife and son is horrific. The murderer had multiple prior arrests for violent theft and child endangerment and was undocumented. He should not have been free on American streets. Well, I think we all agree about that now. So why did he vote against the Lake and Riley Act? And now he's upset about this.
A grand
they're
irony.
both really horrific cases that end with the victim dead. And so it seems to me consistently you should be for the Lake and Riley Act in both cases.
Yeah, great, timely, and relevant reporting. But we've come to expect that from Byron York. Byron, thank you as always. Good stuff.
Thank you, Larry.
It's 7:47.
This afternoon on the Derek Hunter Show, Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono finally discovers what a woman is, because she's just that dumb. I'll explain it at 3 o'clock on WMAL.
Well, if President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump were excited about some pomp and circumstance and royal accoutrements associated with their visit to Buckingham Palace this week, they got everything that they wanted, because what a scene it is right now in London as we speak, as the president and the First Lady are participating in a carriage procession. That's right, a carriage procession. They are in a horse-drawn royal carriage with footmen wearing all their splendor. And the lane there right near Buckingham Palace, is it Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle? Actually, I think it's Windsor Castle now that I think about it. It is. It's in Windsor, England, because he's already been to Buckingham Palace. Yeah, this is the problem. When you're elected a second time and you're invited for a state dinner by the king now of England, you say, yeah, I've already been to Buckingham Palace. You got another castle I can go to? Can we do it somewhere else this time, Chuck? And so, yeah, they're in Windsor, and the lane, the wooded lane for this procession leading to Windsor Castle is lined on both sides by the Royal Guard. These, of course, the beef eaters, the dudes who are on the front of a gin bottle with the big black Q-tip hats and the carrying rifles. It's an amazing scene, an absolutely amazing scene. As he arrives, the president does, representing us with the royals there at Windsor Castle. He's meeting senior members of the royal family on the first full day of the state visit, and he, alongside the First Lady, were welcomed by a Prince and Princess of Wales before formally being welcomed by King Charles and Queen Camilla. Get ready for some incredible images coming out of England today. Also, by the way, I want to remind you, coming up a little later in the program at 8:05, in fact, moments from now, Representative Brandon Gill just introduced some legislation about D.C. crime yesterday. We're going to talk about that and, of course, the government controlling the weather. Keep it here. It's O'Connor and Company, 753.